There are some stories so terrifying. They don't just haunt your nightmares, they change the way you see the world. Story 1. The Watcher House. A Nightmare in New Jersey, 2014. In 2014, the Broaddus family believed they had found their dream home in Westfield, New Jersey. A stunning 6-bedroom house in a quiet, picturesque neighborhood. It seemed perfect for raising a family. But the excitement quickly turned to horror when they received an anonymous letter in their mailbox. The first letter. The letter had no return address, no clues about who sent it. The message inside, however, was deeply disturbing. It read, "Dearest new neighbor, I have been watching this house for decades. My grandfather watched it in the 1920s. My father watched it in the 1960s. And now it is my turn. Do you know the secrets hidden in the walls? Have they told you what lies beneath? I see your children. I know their names. Soon, they will know me too." Derek and Maria Broaddus, the homeowners, were shaken. Who was watching them? How did this person know so much about them? More chillingly, what did they mean by the secrets hidden in the walls of their new home? A growing nightmare. More letters followed. Each time, the writer seemed to know more details about their lives, their daily routines, the clothes they wore, even the names of their children. "I asked the previous owners to bring me young blood, and now they have brought you." The letters became increasingly sinister. The writer taunted them, mentioning how they had watched their daughter playing in the backyard and described where each family member slept. They asked disturbing questions, such as whether the rooms upstairs were too far from the rest of the house for anyone to hear them scream. Terrified, the Broaddus family contacted the police. The authorities launched an investigation, suspecting that it could be a mentally unstable neighbor or a cruel prankster. However, no fingerprints were found on the letters, and the sender remained a mystery. Who was the watcher? The family started researching the history of the house. They learned that the previous owners, the Woods family, had also received a letter just before moving out, but they never responded to it or took it seriously. Suspicion grew in the neighborhood. Could the watcher be one of the Broaddus' new neighbors? Investigators looked into a man who lived nearby and was known for eccentric behavior, but they found no direct evidence linking him to the letters. The Broaddus family installed security cameras and even hired a private investigator. Some theorized that the watcher might be someone jealous of the Broadduses for purchasing the house. Others believed it could be a former resident still obsessed with the home. But despite every effort, no culprit was ever found. The final straw months of terror passed. The letters didn't stop. The Broadduses, too afraid to move into the house, attempted to sell it. But the story had already spread, and potential buyers were scared away. They even considered demolishing the house, but zoning laws prevented them. Years later, in 2019, they managed to sell the home at a massive financial loss. The new owners have remained silent, leaving the world to wonder. Did the watcher finally stop? Or are they still watching, waiting for new young blood to arrive? Theories and unanswered questions. Was the watcher a disturbed neighbor or someone with a sinister obsession with the house? Could it have been a previous resident who never wanted to leave? Or was it all an elaborate hoax? The mystery of the Watcher House remains one of the most terrifying real-life horror stories in American history. The letters have never been traced, and to this day, the true identity of the Watcher remains unknown, lurking in the shadows, perhaps waiting to strike again. Story 2. The Cursed Painting. The Crying Boy art has the power to evoke emotions, tell stories, and even haunt those who dare to gaze upon it for too long. Throughout history, there have been many stories of cursed objects, but few have as eerie and persistent a reputation as the Crying Boy painting. This seemingly innocent piece of artwork became infamous in the 1980s, leaving destruction and terror in its wake. What started as a widely reproduced painting soon turned into a legend of supernatural horror. Families who adorned their homes with the image of the weeping child began experiencing misfortunes so bizarre, they couldn't be dismissed as mere coincidence. Fires, deaths, and unexplained tragedies followed wherever the painting was displayed. The origins of the Crying Boy are murky, but one name repeatedly emerges in connection with it: Bruno Amadio, an Italian painter also known as Giovanni Bragolin. He created several paintings of weeping children, all of which carried an unsettling aura. The most infamous among them was the portrait of a sorrowful young boy, his eyes filled with tears as he gazed hauntingly at the viewer. Initially sold as cheap reproductions, these paintings became popular in homes across Europe and America. It was said that the models for these paintings were orphans, children who had suffered great tragedies. Some versions of the legend claim that one boy, in particular, was the son of a troubled family, abused and neglected, and that his sadness was forever immortalized in the painting. But the eeriest claim is that the child in the painting perished in a house fire, and his restless spirit became trapped in the canvas, desperate for escape. The first reports of misfortune connected to the crying boy began surfacing in the 1980s. Firefighters responding to house fires noticed a chilling pattern. In numerous cases where homes were reduced to ashes, the painting of the crying boy was found intact, unscathed by the flames. A firefighter named Alan Wilkinson reportedly encountered dozens of such cases, each with the same eerie detail. The painting was never burned. Families who survived these fires often recalled strange occurrences in their homes before disaster struck. Some heard whispers in the night. Others claimed to see the boy's tears moving as if he were alive. Terrified, people started sharing their experiences, and a wave of fear swept through communities. Was the painting cursed? And if so, why did it refuse to burn while everything else turned to ash? Legends began to spread, each more sinister than the last. One chilling theory suggested that the boy in the painting was a child who had died in a fire himself, and his tormented soul remained trapped within the artwork. Some even claimed that his spirit sought revenge, setting homes ablaze in his sorrow and rage. Others believed that the painter, Amadio, had unknowingly sealed something evil within his creation, an entity that latched onto anyone who displayed the painting in their home. Some suggested that the artist had made a dark pact, sacrificing the soul of the child for fame and fortune. Regardless of the true origin, the victims shared common experiences. Pets behaved strangely around the painting, refusing to enter rooms where it was displayed. People reported feelings of unease, nightmares, and unexplained misfortunes. And always, there were the fires. As fear spread, many sought to rid themselves of the crying boy. Some destroyed their copies, only to be met with even worse luck. Car accidents, sudden illnesses, financial ruin. Others attempted exorcisms, desperate to break whatever hold the painting seemed to have on them. One well-documented case involved a woman who, after burning the painting, found her home plagued by disturbing occurrences. Objects moving on their own, disembodied whispers, and shadowy figures lurking in her peripheral vision. It was as if destroying the painting had only angered whatever force was tied to it. News outlets caught wind of the hysteria, further fueling the legend. Some skeptics dismissed it as coincidence, while others warned against taking the curse lightly. Even today, copies of the crying boy still exist, tucked away in attics, antique shops, and forgotten corners of the world. Some claim that the curse has faded, while others believe it still lingers, waiting for its next victim. But the question remains: was this merely an urban legend? A case of mass hysteria amplified by fear and coincidence? Or is there something more sinister at play? Something we may never fully understand? Perhaps the real horror lies not in the painting itself, but in the fear it inspired. A fear so powerful that it turned an innocent work of art into an object of terror. Would you dare to hang the crying boy in your home? Or would you rather leave the mystery buried in the ashes of the past? Story 3. The Elisa Lam Elevator. Mystery, Cecil Hotel, Los Angeles, 2013. The unsolved horror of Elisa Lam. The Cecil Hotel in Los Angeles is a place of infamy, shrouded in darkness and drenched in a history of violence, tragedy, and death. Since its grand opening in 1927, the hotel has been linked to countless suicides, murders, and even housed some of history's most notorious serial killers. However, no mystery surrounding the Cecil Hotel is as chilling and perplexing as the case of Elisa Lam. In 2013, 21-year-old Elisa Lam, a Canadian student, checked into the hotel during a solo trip to explore California. Within days, she vanished without a trace. No one saw her leave, and no one knew where she had gone. Then, a disturbing piece of evidence surfaced, a security camera recording from the hotel's elevator. The footage was released to the public, and what it captured sent chills through the internet, igniting widespread speculation and theories about the supernatural. The footage showed Elisa entering the elevator and pressing multiple buttons, but the doors refused to close. She hesitated, stepping back as if expecting someone or something to follow her inside. Then, she cautiously peered into the hallway, looking left and right, as though she were being pursued by an unseen presence. Her behavior grew increasingly erratic. She stepped back inside the elevator, then out again, waving her hands in an unnatural manner as if she were communicating with something invisible. Then, she suddenly vanished down the hallway, leaving the elevator doors to close and open on their own, as if responding to an unseen force. For weeks, there was no sign of Elisa. The police searched every corner of the Cecil Hotel, yet no clues surfaced. Then, guests began complaining about the hotel's water supply. The tap water was discolored, smelled foul, and had an unexplainable taste. Maintenance staff were sent to investigate the rooftop water tanks, an area that was supposed to be locked and inaccessible to guests. What they found was horrifying. Inside one of the large water tanks, Elisa Lam's decomposing body floated in the dark water. The discovery shocked investigators. How had she ended up there? The rooftop doors were locked, the tanks were heavy and difficult to access, and no logical explanation could be given for how she got inside. The coroner ruled her death as an accidental drowning, with no signs of external trauma or foul play. Yet, the case was far from closed. How did she bypass the locked rooftop door? Why was she behaving so strangely in the elevator footage? And why did the water tank's lid seem too heavy for her to lift alone? Elisa Lam's mysterious death sparked endless theories, each more disturbing than the last. Some believed she suffered a psychotic episode due to her bipolar disorder, leading her to unknowingly enter the water tank. Others suspected foul play, perhaps by someone who worked at the hotel or had knowledge of its hidden passages. Some even believed the Cecil Hotel's dark past played a role, suggesting that supernatural forces led Elisa to her eerie fate. The Cecil Hotel has been synonymous with death for decades. Infamous serial killer Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, once lived there. Another serial killer, Jack Unterweger, also resided at the hotel while committing his crimes. The Cecil has been the site of countless suicides, unexplained deaths, and eerie sightings. Was Elisa Lam merely another tragic victim of the hotel's sinister energy? Or was something darker at play? Despite the official ruling of accidental death, the case remains one of the most chilling mysteries in modern history. To this day, no one can fully explain how or why Elisa Lam met her tragic fate inside the Cecil Hotel. Would you dare to stay there? Would you dare to ride that elevator? Or would you be afraid of what might be waiting for you in the shadows? Story 4. The Bell Witch Haunting, Tennessee, 1804 to 1820. The Curse of the Bell Family. America is filled with ghost stories, but few have withstood the test of time like the legend of the Bell Witch. This was no ordinary haunting. It was a torment so relentless, so violent, that it left an entire community shaken and afraid. The story began in 1804, when John Bell and his family settled in the quiet town of Adams, Tennessee. For years, their lives were peaceful, their farm prosperous. But in 1817, the nightmare began. Strange occurrences disrupted their home. Faint whispering voices in the dead of night, unexplained knocking on the walls, and eerie laughter echoing through the house. At first, the Bells dismissed it as their imagination. But then, the entity made itself known in terrifying ways. The attacks were vicious. At night, the children woke up screaming, their bodies covered in scratches and bruises left by unseen hands. Their hair was pulled violently, and they were slapped by an invisible force. Objects flew across the room on their own. Chairs scraped against the floor, doors slammed shut, and the air was thick with an unnatural chill. John Bell, the patriarch of the family, was not spared. He fell mysteriously ill, his body weakening without explanation. The entity seemed to take pleasure in his suffering. It spoke in a guttural, mocking voice, calling itself Kate and claiming to be a vengeful witch who had cursed the Bell family. Neighbors, skeptical at first, soon witnessed the phenomenon for themselves. The entity conversed with visitors, repeating conversations it had overheard miles away. It sang hymns, quoted Bible verses, and sometimes erupted into manic laughter. Even prominent figures, including future U.S. President Andrew Jackson, were drawn to the Bell farm to witness the supernatural force. Legend has it that Jackson, after encountering the witch, fled, declaring, "I'd rather face the entire British Army than spend another night with the Bell Witch." As John Bell's health continued to deteriorate, the entity's presence grew stronger. One fateful morning in 1820, he was found lifeless in his bed. Near his body, the family discovered a mysterious black vial filled with a dark liquid. Before anyone could examine it, the voice of the witch erupted into triumphant laughter. It boasted that it had poisoned John Bell, fulfilling its dark purpose. To test the substance, a drop was placed on the tongue of the family cat. The animal convulsed and died instantly. With John Bell's death, the entity's presence diminished. It continued to torment the family for a short time before announcing it would leave, but not forever. It promised to return in 7 years, and as the legend goes, it did. Even today, eerie whispers and unexplained phenomena are reported near the old Bell farm. The legend of the Bell Witch remains one of America's most enduring supernatural mysteries. Was it truly the spirit of a vengeful witch, a demonic force, or something even darker, lurking in the shadows of history? The truth remains buried in the haunted soil of Tennessee. Would you dare to visit the land where the Bell Witch once roamed? Or would you fear that her whispering voice is still waiting in the darkness? Story 5. The Phantom Clown Sightings. 1981. The Vanishing Grins in the Dark. The summer of 1981 was unlike any other in America. It wasn't just the sweltering heat or the long, lazy days that stretched into warm nights. It was something else, something that left an imprint of terror in the minds of parents and children alike. Something that didn't belong. They called them the Phantom Clowns. It started with whispers in schoolyards. Children claimed to see strange men dressed as clowns lurking near playgrounds and alleyways, their painted faces frozen in eerie smiles. But these were no ordinary clowns from birthday parties or carnivals. These figures moved in silence, appearing from nowhere and vanishing without a trace. They seemed to be watching, waiting. The first reports came from Boston, Massachusetts. Children described being approached by clowns driving dark-colored vans. The clowns offered them candy, promised to take them to see something wonderful, or simply beckoned with gloved fingers. Some children ran. Others stood frozen, staring into the painted faces, transfixed by grins that never faded. But when parents rushed to the scene or called the police, the clowns were gone. Not a single adult ever caught a glimpse of them. The phenomenon spread. Within weeks, reports surfaced in Kansas City, Omaha, Denver, and Pittsburgh. Panic took hold. Schools sent out warnings, police patrols increased. But no clowns were ever caught, no vans were ever found, and no children were ever taken. At least, none that were reported. The most disturbing part? No evidence, no arrests, no answers. Skeptics dismissed it as mass hysteria, a wave of paranoia that swept through communities like an infection. But others weren't so sure. Some believed the clowns were real, predators in disguise, moving from city to city, just out of reach. And some whispered an even darker theory, that the phantom clowns were never human to begin with. A growing terror. In every city where the sightings occurred, there were eerie similarities. Children would report the same chilling details. Clowns peering from the shadows, red-painted lips stretched too wide, eyes glinting in the dim light. They never spoke, only gestured. Some children claimed the clowns didn't even walk. Some said they floated just above the ground. Parents were at a loss. What kind of predator operated with such precision, leaving no trace? No license plates, no fingerprints, no witnesses besides the children themselves. Rumors ran wild. Some said the clowns were part of a secret cult, an underground network of kidnappers. Others feared it was something more supernatural, beings that existed only on the edge of perception, stepping into our world just long enough to spread fear. Despite numerous reports, the authorities were baffled. No arrests were made. Police officers dismissed the cases, suggesting overactive imaginations and urban legends gone wild. But the fear was real. Parents began escorting their children everywhere. The sight of a balloon floating aimlessly in the wind was enough to send a chill down the spine of an entire neighborhood. And then, the sightings stopped. Just as quickly as they began, the phantom clowns vanished. No more children came forward with stories. No more dark vans lurked near schools. The fear lingered, but the creatures themselves seemed to have disappeared. Had they moved on to another place? Or had they been something else all along? Something that fed on fear, then disappeared when they had consumed enough. The phantom returns. Even today, there are those who claim the phantom clowns never truly disappeared. Every few years, in scattered parts of the country, a new wave of sightings emerges. In 2016, eerie clown sightings swept through America once more, this time with videos, photographs, and even arrests. But many still believe the original 1981 clowns were different. They left no evidence, no trail, just fear. They are still out there, hiding in the places where the light doesn't reach, watching, waiting. The next time you walk alone at dusk, pay attention to the shadows. If you see a flash of red, a painted grin in the darkness, run. But will you be fast enough? These were some of the scariest American horror story moments ever. True stories, chilling mysteries, and terrifying encounters that remain unsolved. But the scariest thing of all, some mysteries never stay buried. If you dare to hear more, subscribe to Shadow Terror. But beware, some stories have a way of following you home.